Hello everyone and welcome to the first game we'll be showing from round 9 of this year's FIDE Candidates Tournament. It is Vidit Gujrathi versus Hikaru Nakamura, and if you remember from the previous video that I made about their matchup from the first half of the Candidates Tournament, previously they've met 2 times in classical chess and both of their games ended in a draw. But now, in the first half of the FIDE Candidates Tournament, Vidit has defeated Hikaru Nakamura, and now he is leading in their head-to-head score, so of course Hikaru would very much love to bounce back. Vidit has defeated him with the black pieces, so Hikaru will try to do the same. Yeah, like I said, this is the first game we'll show. It's a very exciting one. Let's check it out. Vidit with the white pieces opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5 by Hikaru, knight f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4. Again, the Italian game. Knight f6, the two knights defense, and not knight to g5, but d3, the modern bishop's opening. We have pawn to h6, c3, we have pawn to d6 castles, and now a fairly rare move, but it has been played by a very, very strong player on multiple occasions, g5, a favorite of Shahryar Mamedyarov. Let's see how Vidit deals with this. We have knight b to d2, bishop to g7, and bishop to b3, preparing to shift the bishop over to c2 if attacked by the knight. Pawn to a5, pawn to a4, we have castles, and now knight to c4. And here is where things get really interesting. The position has been reached before. Surya Shekhar Ganguly defeated Arjun Kailan with pawn to d5 here. It was played in 2021 in Biel Masters, but here we have bishop to e6, and it is now as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. So what is Hikaru's plan with this bishop to e6 move? Well, I checked around this point. I checked the live commentary of the FIDE main live stream where Vishwanathan Anand alongside Irina Krash is commentating on the positions, and Anand was very intrigued by this bishop to e6 move because he said that now if you go knight to e3, which is kind of the idea, you want to challenge the bishop and also contest for the f5 square, then d5 just solves all of black's problems. So bishop to e6 is preparation for d5. And now if let's say he captures knight, captures, black's position is just amazing here. And even if you play something like h4, you can even give up a pawn with the g4, but then white has to give up the bishop in order to take the pawn. For example, bishop captures, knight captures, and the entire position opens up. This would be madness. For example, pawn to f5, you give up the h6 pawn, king h8. Now you can get the rook into the game. The bishop is very strong. The queen will have entrance at white's king side. So while objectively playable, yeah, you would pretty much solve all of black's problems with knight to e3 here. So Vidit just plays rook to e1. Very nice move that keeps the tension. It stops d5 as if you advance the pawn to d5, then e captures, and then the e5 pawn becomes very, very weak. It will be attacked 3 times. So Hikaru has to decide whether now it's time to push g4 or not. And also we do have a nice photo of this matchup, so let's check it out. So yeah, nothing weird happening as usual. I mean, it is the Candidates Tournament. I don't know. I can't really make out. Does Hikaru have a little tiny rooks on his T-shirt? So that could be interesting. But if not, then it's just a pretty regular photo. But it's also interesting that Hikaru usually he loves wearing these colorful T-shirts. But as soon as Alireza started wearing them, Hikaru is just appears very decent in every game. Something about the photos, and now pawn to g4. Yeah, that's what we were discussing. It's possible, but you don't really want to go to h4, then the knight can move and there could be some trouble here. You can play it, but I mean it runs into knight captures on e4 and then something like d captures, queen captures on h4. Again, you don't want to solve all of black's problems, so you're going to have to go knight f to d2, and after something like pawn to d5, now you will play e captures, knight captures, and you will get the e4 square for your knight. Coming to c5, now black has to make a choice whether to stop that with b6, or you want to go crazy, you want to play f5, and maybe even it can even be that kind of a game. Knight c5, bishop to f7. You can offer the b7 pawn, even for example captures, queen f6. Pawns are coming. I mean, this would be very interesting to watch. However, rook to e8 by Hikaru. pawn to h3, and now queen to d7, putting pressure on the h3 pawn, but Vidit just nicely develops bishop to d2, saying that you don't have bishop captures on h3, and indeed he doesn't, because if you actually went for this, knight h2, and there's no follow-up. You don't have knight to d4. You don't really have any moves with the knight. This is covered by the knight and by the queen. You don't have h5 because g5 is hanging. You could play knight to h5, but then rook e3. You have everything covered. I mean, it's not really any sort of an issue. The queen has to keep an eye on the knight. Then you can play rook to f3. You can play queen to f3. So it's a very nice position for white. So instead, after bishop to d2, rook a to d8 by Hikaru, and now queen to c2. Nicely developing, connecting rooks. We have pawn to b6, and now bishop to a2. Now you even have to wonder what happens now after bishop to a2. Of course, you are making room for b4 to be played, but also it's not impossible to consider something like the rook moves, the bishop comes to b1, you have this nice battery, then the position opens up. Anything is possible here. And here comes the first real big thing of the game. Hikaru spent some 30 minutes on this move, and he went knight to h5. Again, g4 is possible, but these are very well-known positions in similar openings where you just don't have all that much. For example, knight to e3, you're going to be able to trade here. Let's say you trade off everything, captures, you can even trade here. And it's nice, you get to execute d5, but it's nothing spectacular. And I mean, let's say before the queen defends the rook, Hikaru is obviously looking for more here. So after bishop to a2, he keeps the tension, plays knight to h5, and now knight to e3. Finally challenges that bishop while having sufficient control over that d5 square. And if the bishops come off the board, then the knight can come to f5. One thing Hikaru could consider is knight to f4. Definitely a good square for the knight. And then let's say the bishops get traded off, captures, and then you give up the f5 square to the white knight. And you do not want this knight here. Of course, the knight will be challenged, and now you have to decide whether you take on g7 or you take on e7. Both is actually possible, matter of preference. The engine even prefers knight captures on e7, even though it's not very human to do this. But as you can see, the bishop is kind of boxed in. So let's say captures, rook to b1, and yeah, b4 will again be coming. But after knight e3, Hikaru went for bishop captures on a2. We have rook captures, and now knight to e7, preparing to remaneuver the knight over to g6, and now Vidit strikes with pawn to d4, which is kind of odd. b4 would go a long way. For example, if you capture, then a5 already creates a passed pawn, but Vidit decides to go the other way around. He plays d4, e captures, c captures, and now pawn to d5. We have pawn to e5, and rook to c8. Hikaru now finally ready to push c5, open up the c file, and rook to a3 by Vidit. This is a very elegant move, and the idea behind rook to a3 is that, let's say you go knight to g4 first. While it is very nice, you do have the option of striking with f5, and then let's say e captures, you're going to play knight captures, bishop captures, and knight e5. You will need that rook to enter the attack. Now, whether black keeps the tension with queen f5 or gives up the bishop, you still will need to bring that rook into the game. So Vidit does exactly that. Rook to a3. We have pawn to c5, and now d captures on c5. Again, an interesting way would be to just go knight g4, and you allow this, and then you just move the queen with queen to d3. Then you go after the b6 pawn. You do have a lot of pressure on the king side as well, so this would not be easy to play for Hikaru. But after c5, d captures on c5 by Vidit, rook captures on c5, and now queen to d1. Threatening all sorts of nasty discoveries once this knight moves. So of course Hikaru finally moves the knight from h5, and now pawn to b4. And here Anand also said that he didn't really get right away what was wrong with a captures on b4, and indeed there is nothing wrong with a captures on b4. While you can play it, maybe also something that Anand mentioned, maybe the problem is just bishop captures on e7, and after rook captures, now you have some very nasty ideas here, like queen to b1 is possible. just gaining control over this diagonal, preparing knight to f5, also getting ready to put pressure on that b6 pawn. And while it can be played, for example, rook e6, knight f5, it does look very ugly. And Hikaru, as usual, prefers activity over, keeping some sort of, well, it still keeps material, but he just prefers to be more active. He plays rook back to c8. We have b captures on e5, b captures, and now he gives up a pawn. Bishop captures on a5. And now, okay, if you can stop it, you still hold, but if that pawn starts marching forward and it becomes unstoppable, then you just lose the game. Knight to c6, and Vidit moves the bishop. Bishop back to c3, controls the knight nicely, and also helps out with the defense of the e5 pawn, but not really. Knight captures on e5 by Hikaru, and here bishop captures on e5 is the move. Knight captures on e5 is actually the move that loses Hikaru the game. Which is very, very weird. It's very weird that this position is now winning for Vidit, but for a very particular reason. Feel free to pause the video and figure out what Hikaru missed with half an hour on the clock while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting that Hikaru has now blundered a pawn. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is bishop captures on e5. That's the move you have to play. The variation that Hikaru probably saw, and what everyone always sees first, because you never consider bishop captures first. You always consider knight captures first. The point is that after knight captures, let's say bishop captures, you will play knight captures. You will play bishop captures on e5, but also there is the possibility of going knight captures on d5, but not here. Here you will have to play bishop captures on e5, and then after rook captures, that's pretty much it. The problem is if you play knight captures on d5 here, yes, you are attacking the bishop twice now, but there's also bishop captures on c3, and now everything just trades down. Rook captures on e8 with check, queen captures, rook captures on c3, knight captures on d5, rook captures on c8, queen captures on c8, and queen captures on d5. And yes, you keep the passed pawn, but there's a perpetual. Queen c1, check, king h2, queen to f4, check, king to g1, queen to c1, check, king h2, and so on and so on. It's a draw. But Vidit played bishop captures on e5. And that means in this line that we've just checked, there is no bishop on c3 for the knight to, or rook to attack. And now you're just winning the d5 pawn. Bishop captures on e5, knight captures on d5. And yeah, very nice. Knight captures. We have knight captures on e5 now, attacking the black queen. Queen to e6, other moves aren't really that much better. And now rook to d3, just threatening to win the knight on d5. So knight to f4, and now rook to d6, attacking the queen. And while you could consider some moves with the queen, queen to a2 is by far the best. Let's say you play queen to f5, already knight to g4 puts a lot of pressure on your queen, so h6 will fall. It's only a matter of how long you can keep going. Let's say rook captures on e1, queen captures, king g7, but just knight captures on h6, attacks the queen, and once the queen moves or really anywhere, queen e7, and yeah, that's pretty much it. You're gonna play rook to c7 to help out with the defense of f7, but then queen f6, check comes king to h7, now knight f5, and well, you're either checkmating black, or if knight h5, you're still checkmating black. Queen h6 checking to g8, rook to d8. With check, you have to give up the queen, and that's it. Rook captures will be checkmate. So yeah, queen f5, although can be played, it loses by force. Queen to a2 was played, threatening a couple of final tricks, but just rook captures on h6. Here comes queen to b2, putting pressure on the knight, and now Vidit's position is again completely winning, but you still have to play the correct move. Just for fun, I'm sure you guys already see it. Feel free to pause the video and win the game for Vidit while I give you a couple of seconds. Of course, all of you were able to do it, and the move is queen to d7 or queen to g4. Comes with the same idea, really. Queen g4 threatens queen captures on g5, but also stops queen captures, sorry, not queen captures, rook captures on e5, because the rook on c8 would hang. Queen on d7 does a similar thing, attacks f7 with check, which would be checkmate, and also if, well, you cannot really do anything about this, because then also this would be hanging, even though, yeah, I mean, you could remove the defender of f7, but then this rook hangs, and yeah, that's a huge deal. For example, you capture, queen captures on c8, you're gonna go here, and now queen to h8 is checkmate. So a fun line. So after queen d7, queen to b3, Hikaru defends the f7 pawn, but now queen to f5, going after g5, and that's pretty much it. Knight to g6 was played, hoping for queen captures on g5. Maybe the game keeps going a little bit, but Vidit just played rook captures on g6, and he was in this position. Upon reaching the position from the thumbnail, that Hikaru Nakamura resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Point is that if the rook is captured, let's say f captures on g6, you're going to play queen captures on g6, and now, of course, king f8 runs into mate in 1. And if king to h8, okay, you do have a bit more work to do, but it's not really a problem. King g8, you're going to capture a pawn, king h8, queen h6 check, king g8, queen to g6 check, king to h8, and now rook to e4 with rook to h4 checkmate. There's no stopping this. You could give a few checks, let's say rook c1 check, king h2. You can even capture on e5, but still rook to h5, rook to h4, and that's it. Rook h5, rook captures, and this is checkmate. So yeah, that's not going to work. After this rook captures on g6, Hikaru resigned the game. And we even have a nice video of the resignation, so let me just load that up for you real quickly. I have it somewhere here. There we go.
On g6, and he does it after captures no, he resigns. He does not want to play on, not to suffer longer.
It is game over. Hikaru Nakamura does not play on after that last move. Vidit Gujrathi winning for the second time in the candidates against the world number 3. A big win for Vidit. A huge road bump for Hikaru on his path to the world championship.
But even though it was a really tough position and a tough loss for Hikaru, he really loves chess. He's always a gentleman about it, and yeah, of course he still wants to analyze and talk about the game after even after such a tough loss. And while this is very hard for Hikaru, Vidit definitely bounces back, and these are now the standings after round 9. Which, if you don't want to know the results of the other games, skip the video. Don't watch the video anymore, as I will now present the standings after round 9. So these are the new standings. Gukesh and Jan still tied in the lead, as both of them drew their game. Pragnananda in sole second place with 5 points. With 4.5, we have now Hikaru Nakamura, Vidit Gujrathi, and Fabiano Caruana. Ali Reza on 3.5, and Nijat Abbasov on 3. So as you can see, Jan, the only one still undefeated, but he does have 2 wins. Gukesh has 3 wins, although he did lose 1 game. Nijat Abbasov still without a single win, and Vidit now has 3 wins, 3 draws, and 3 losses. So very interesting results here. Yeah, anything is still possible. Again, if Gukesh and Jan lose a game, the entire tournament turns around. You could have Gukesh and Jan be like fifth and 6th place in a single round if if it happens. So nothing is still decided, nothing is yet decided, everything is still possible. We'll see what happens, but yeah, for this round, definitely a huge win for Vidit. While all the other games have ended in a draw, I will inspect them thoroughly and present the best ones after this one has been shown. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Vidit now defeats Hikaru twice in the FIDE candidates tournament. Like I said in the beginning of the video, before the candidates, they have not had any decisive games against each other, but now Vidit is 2-0 against Hikaru. And the first game, Vidit defeated Hikaru in 29 moves, second game in only 36 moves. So yeah, Vidit obviously doing very well against Hikaru. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank MPU Consulting, Jeffrey Cook, Jacob Gonzalez, Ashish Yole, and Mark Janssen for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.